Hello, everybody. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am fired up for this one, man, because I get to talk about Big 12 Media Days. You've been seeing all the content that's been trickling out from Big 12 Media Days. Man, it was a blast. It was a whirlwind, but it was a blast. Love seeing a lot of people out there, the 365 crew. I'm going to stop trying to name people because there are so many that I would forget. But, man, it was awesome getting caught up with everybody, being back in that sort of an environment and experiencing what is a remarkably confident, dare I say, almost a little bit brash Big 12 conference. It is great. I'm loving the vibes right now coming from the conference. If you are a vibes person, the vibes are immaculate coming from the Big 12 right now. So we're going to talk all about it. We're going to break everything down. We're going to talk about the shots that were levied at Texas and Oklahoma from Mike Gundy and Tim Weiser. That was one of the more interesting moments, obviously, of the weekend for me was the Tim Weiser interview that I hope all of you guys have watched here on this channel. If you have not yet, I would certainly suggest you going to do that. So we've got that to talk about. We've even got, there are stories that could have been big topics on live shows here that just happened last week that'll be a little bit buried because of everything that happened at Big 12 Media Days. But we, of course, have the ACC linking up with the CW. They beat the Pac-12 to the altar with the good old CW. And the Pac-12 is also saying through John Canzano that this deal is going to be worth the wait. Worth the wait. So we shall see. Also, if you want to get into more of like the rumor, innuendo, scuttlebutt sort of thing, there are people like Barry Trammell, Tony Caridi, Dusty Dvorak, who all kind of talked about next week being something potentially to look forward to and that there could be some sort of a bombshell coming then. And I'll tack on to that. Our first donation of the night. I see our web in the house. Our web says, Flugar says Act 13 opens the 25th of July. So that would be kind of along those same lines. I think a lot of you guys follow Peek Around the Corner, and Greg Flugar would highly suggest you doing that if you're into realignment, into this space. So that's another valuable bit of information. Appreciate that, R-Web. And looking forward to having you here in the chat. So it's kind of what I got, man. I've got a whole list of takeaways from Big 12 Media Day. A lot about Brett Yormark, some of the comments he made. Again, I will have to shout out the 365 folks. Just an awesome interview. I was literally just watching it before I hopped on here. Finally got a chance to catch up and see Brett Yormark and Mac Rhodes on with their crew. And listening to Brett Yormark talk, especially in that context, like in that interview, answering some of those questions, like not afraid to pick up the phone and call Sankey when Sankey kind of, I would say, like subtweeted him, but it was through quotes. It came after him a little bit through some quotes, was not afraid to pick up the phone and call saying, hey, I'm not apologizing for the way that I'm doing things. I also love that he just said, like, hey, an athletic director told me the other day, like, we're just applying heat constantly. And Brett Yormark likes that. He's here for it. That's what he wants to do. And I love that attitude from the league. So, man, just great stuff all the way around from everything that happened there. I've got plenty to say about what Tim Weiser had to say about Texas and Oklahoma, as you might imagine. It has been just wild. The Texas reaction to that. And, I get that it was going to be a little incendiary and get people mad. But man, Texas is mad. Texas is big mad about Tim Weiser's comments. I don't even really know that if you're Texas, you have to take them as being that offensive. But Texas fans absolutely have. So we will definitely get into that here on the show as well. That's a brief outline. I kind of want to just get going into everything. So that's the basic outline of what we have on the show here today. If you guys have been here before, you know how this works. If you haven't, let me explain it to you. R-Web and some others have already been chiming in here with some donations on the show. That is how you make your voice heard. That is how you get on the show here tonight and get your comment on the show. That is the way to do it. You click the $ below the chat box where it says chat. I'm still in the old habit of say something. Now it says chat. YouTube's changing things up on me. Below the chat box where it says chat, you click the $, you attach a donation to your question or comment. It will pin it up at the top for me. It guarantees that it gets read on the show. Over 100 people in the chat already here tonight. I will not be able to keep up with everything going on there. So if you want to get on and support the work that I'm doing to bring you this Big 12 and conference realignment related content on a weekly basis, please do consider clicking the $ below where it says chat to get your question or comment on the show tonight. Also, a completely free way to support the channel is just to like the video. All I'm asking for there, one click, just go over there, give me a like. And hey, leave a comment in the comment section of the video before, during, or after, whether you love me, hate me, agree, disagree, whatever it is, all of it helps. So would much appreciate you doing that as well. And if you are catching up to this after the fact, you're not watching it live, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support the channel there as well. So plenty of ways that you can help support the channel, help support getting this great Big 12 and conference realignment related content on a weekly basis. I'm glad I see Christian. I do see this is the one. I just caught this, Christian. I want to shout you out because it gives me an opportunity to talk about this background. You guys look at this. I put together a bookshelf today. All right. There's no easy task for your boy here. I am not a very handy person at all. And I got the bookshelf put together. I got my Patrick Mahomes cereal behind me. I got my framed Big 12 championship picture with some confetti that actually fell onto the field that day back there. Obviously, I've got the cat script up top too. So we've got it all, man. We got it all. I'm happy with the way the background turned out. No more light switches. Sorry, guys. No more light switches. Hopefully that'll be okay for you guys. All right. Matthew. What's up, Matthew? Matthew says, and I appreciate your support, Matthew, if you still are here, because I see the first thing you say is can't stay, gotta run, but can't stay, gotta run. Great job on Media Day interviews. Looking forward to next week after Pac Media Days and what those teams say about media rights on the 21st. Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. By the way, Matthew and others, you think the Pac-12 would credential me? Think I can get a credential to Pac-12 Media Days? That would be a worthwhile content trip. I can tell you that much, but not sure how welcoming they would be for all of us to go attend that. But yeah, that is a great thing to put on the radar, Matthew. We have Pac-12 Media Days coming up on Friday. It is the 21st that we're going to get Pac-12 Media Days. So that's going to be quite interesting. I say obviously, in all likelihood, we are not going to actually get the TV deal by what was set by John Wilner as another soft deadline for when they would need to have something to announce to the world. We presume that we will not have that, but do we start to get some details? What's the line of questioning going to be like to Kliavkoff? I continue to expect that we might get a bit of a sort of defiant Kliavkoff when that happens. And because in these situations before, it's when he's kind of popped off, like making his comment about we haven't decided if we're going shopping there or not. That comment about the Big 12 came at a point where he was speaking publicly and clearly had been beaten down a little bit by the narrative and was frustrated by it. So I have a feeling that we're going to get a little bit of that from George Kliavkoff. Whereas, Brett Yormark pretty much decided to tie this all back to Media Day. He pretty much decided to punt on anything like that in Arlington. He said, look, we have an expansion plan, but I'm not going to talk about it much here today. And in that 365 interview, he was talking about wanting to make sure that they were collegial with all of their colleagues across the country and, kind of wants to do things the right way. He just said, and Mac Rhodes made the point, like, I think sometimes you can take being open about something as like disrespectful because no one's been this open about realignment before. All these realignment moves just happen all of a suddenly at the final hour, it's done. And you had no idea that it actually was going to happen. And you pull the rug out from under everybody. Meanwhile, the Big 12 has been just like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to expand. We're trying to add. They're just putting it out there in the open, and people kind of take that as being offensive because it's never quite been done like that before. So it's a refreshing approach. I really like that approach from Brett Yormark, and George Kliavkoff clearly has operated a little bit differently throughout all of this. So yes, Matthew, that is going to be wildly fascinating. When I sit here a week from today, we will be talking, I'm sure, all about what transpired at Pac-12 Media Days, what did or did not transpire at Pac-12 Media Days as it relates rather to all of that. Our web, appreciate you again, my guy. Our web says Weiser interview was a fine age, rare steak. It sure was. It sure was, man. That was something. I would imagine a lot of you guys have watched that. If you did not watch it, I've got the quotes pulled up here for you. I just have to laugh when I think about it. I'm going to give you the backstory on all of this too before I get into it. So Tim Weiser is he's the deputy commissioner of the Big 12, the COO. I think you could really call him by either title. He was the athletic director at K-State from 2001 to 2008. So a big part of the interview that we got for the 3-Mod podcast, which, if you're a K-State fan, I would highly encourage you to listen to, was, and my thought when we got him was like, I'm going to ask him all about hiring Ron Prince, hiring Bob Huggins, Bill Snyder retiring, Just all these things from his K-State days that I wondered like how open he would be to talking about. But I started just with realignment because I was like, well, I mean, this guy's deputy commissioner of the Big 12. I might as well get his opinion on what's going on there. And he started to be very open. And so I thought, all right, well, we're just going to ride this train as long as we can ride it. He clearly seemed like he wanted to say something about all this that was going on. So I was definitely going to be the guy to give him the opportunity there. And that was not anything like pre-planned. I would love to say that I came in with some brilliant plan to execute where we were going to go get Weiser and I was going to pin him down on all these questions. Like that is not what happened at all. My guy Cole Manbeck, who you guys know from the Fremont pod, if you've done that with me, he used to be the K-State beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury way back in the day. And so he had a relationship with Tim Weiser. He knew Tim Weiser from his time on the beat back in those days. And so he ran into him just walking around on the turf in Arlington and decided to ask him if he would come do an interview. And he pitched that to me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. That would be great. Again, thinking not very much of it. And then about 5 minutes into that, I was like, okay, game on. We've got a little something here because I believe the question Cole asked him that brought all this out about Texas and Oklahoma was just, it was a very generic question about like, hey, what do you think about realignment in college football? And he was the one that decided to go out of his way to say this about Texas and Oklahoma, which again tells me like this is a guy that really had something to say. He really wanted to get this message out there, and boy did he. So on Texas and Oklahoma, here is the direct quote from Tim Weiser, again, deputy commissioner of the Big 12, COO of the Big 12. He said, quote, I continue to maintain that the choice Texas made wasn't a financial one because we all know what Texas's resources are like. I think was more about affiliating with a group of schools that on a given Saturday, they would rather get beat by Alabama than they would Kansas State or Florida than Iowa State. I think what drove what they were looking for down the road in Oklahoma's case, I'm not so sure that was the issue for them. I think they were more like what you would call the reluctant bride that kind of felt like, well, if we don't go, what happens to the Texas OU football game, the basketball game? All of those things we know are important from a Texas OU standpoint. If I was in Oklahoma's case, it would be hard for me not to think about the long term. Do we want to be qualified or affiliated with Texas and these other schools? Okay. I kind of butchered reading those quotes. It's difficult to read the quote as opposed to just watch the video. Watching the video definitely accentuates it more, but he calls Oklahoma the reluctant bride, which is less offensive probably than what he said about Texas, but I'm sure Oklahoma fans weren't totally thrilled. But it's the Texas fan base that seems just completely knocked back on their heels by these comments. So saying that Texas's decision was more about affiliating with a group of schools than it was money, I will just start by saying, like, I have a nuanced take on all of this. I think it clearly was somewhat about money. Texas is going to make so much more money in the SEC that even with all their resources, that will definitely help. But I agree with him that I think a huge part of it, and I think one of the main pieces of it, and this is where I even saw, I think it was the SB Nation Texas site, like responded to this on Twitter and kind of said like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. And so I feel like there should be some sensibility in most Texas fans, media, et cetera, whatever, to like take a step back, take a deep breath and be like, yeah, that kind of is what it is. You want to be associated with these bigger national brands in the SEC. It is a bigger national brand as a conference. You wanted that. That's really what he's saying. Now, I get that when he says, you'd rather get beat by Alabama than K-State, then that brings it home a little bit more and people take offense. But this is where, like, I feel like some of it just it hits a little too close to home for Texas. Because, yes, I know Texas fans. I've seen everybody point it out. I'm well aware of the fact that K-State has not beaten Texas since 2016. I'm well aware of the overall record against Iowa State. The days of K-State beating Texas every year, which was happening for about a 5 to 10 year stretch there, are long gone. I'm aware of that. But Texas also has not won the league since 2009. Texas has also not won the league in a couple of different presidential terms that have come up here. K-State has won multiple Big 12 titles since Texas last won one. Baylor has won multiple Big 12 titles since Texas last won one. They have clearly been losing a lot of games to these teams in the conference that they do not want to affiliate with. They want to be with the big brands. They don't want to be with the Iowa States and K-States of the world. They don't want those teams on the schedule. I saw that written. In fact, I think it may have been the Texas SB Nation site that wrote one of the real fire-breathing articles when they first were leaving a couple summers ago, where it basically said, like, yeah, Texas fans don't get excited about Iowa State on the schedule. They would rather have these SEC teams coming in. Like, fair enough. I get it. I do understand. So there's truth there. And that's why it has puzzled me a little bit at how Texas has had such a freaking visceral reaction to these comments. And it's driven them into the conspiracy la land about officiating and how that's going to go. And of course, that brings back, the Oklahoma fans' comments about holding calls last year and all the BS that we've seen divulged by those two fan bases to make excuses for the fact that they haven't been in the Big 12 championship game each of the last 2 years, neither one of them. So it's just we're back to square one as far as all that goes, and I'm sure we're going to continue to hear that. I just, to me, my theory on this would just be like hits a little too close to home for Texas, digs at some of those insecurities about the fact that the football program has been very mediocre over the last 15 years, and there's no real running and hiding from that. They have essentially been, to further this analogy, they have essentially been K-State football, but with less high-end success over the last 15 years. So, yeah, it probably does hit close to home when you see the comments like, yeah, they'd rather lose to Florida than Iowa State or Alabama than K-State. So I don't really think Tim Weiser's wrong. Now, do I think the way that he went about it, the way it came across was necessary, especially on the same day that Brett Yormark stood up at the podium and said that, I'm going to read his direct quote, we're going to celebrate our new four, and in fact, we're going to celebrate Texas and Oklahoma and all the contributions they've made to this conference since day one. That does not fit that narrative. And I think Brett Yormark probably, I don't know this, I would imagine, probably would have preferred everybody go high as opposed to going a little bit low there. But I don't think this was as low as like Texas fans would make you believe. And again, I can't even tell you everything that I've heard about the Texas reaction to this, but I've just been shocked at how much it has seemingly bothered them that these comments were made. And so it's a little soft if you ask me, but I also think it hits a little bit close to home for Texas. And I don't understand why Texas can't come around to the fact that there is legitimate truth to this. And it's not even that it's a bad thing. Like, yes. And the other part of this, like, yeah, obviously if Tim Weiser were still the athletic director at K-State and K-State got an SEC invite, yeah, K-State would be gone too. Like, we all understand this. To associate with those bigger and better brands, pretty much everybody in college football would want to do the same thing. So understood, but not totally wrong. It was just a very open and transparent comment. And that does fit with kind of what Brett Yormark is saying about all this. Like, we want to be pretty open and transparent. I will just say, yes, the way it came across, it was a little bit of a cheap shot. But at the same time, what's a little bit of a cheap shot is leaving everybody in the dust for the SEC after you shot down the idea, didn't want a Big 12 conference network, wanted your own network, and put the conference in peril in the first place, and have always held the conference over the barrel the entirety of the time you've been here, drove off Nebraska. I mean, look, laundry list of things that Texas has done that have not put this conference in a good position and have made everybody else get to a point where they would want to say something like this. So Texas, you've done it to yourself a little bit too. Like, we all see the arrogance. We know the arrogance. I mean, if you want to go watch the the Texas On 3 crews, like, video reaction to the comments. And I mean, it is like it is the most condensed arrogance in like a 10 to 15 minute format that you will ever see. I don't know that it would be you could take the richest people in the Upper West Side of Manhattan and throw them in a room. I'm talking Manhattan, New York, right? You throw them in a room with a bunch of caviar, and I'm not sure that you would get more arrogance on a mic in 10 to 15 minutes than those guys. Like, we all see it. We know you are what you are, and that's going to piss everybody else off, and sometimes that's going to lead to some comments like this. So I don't know. If Tim Weiser wants to do it, he is well within his rights to do it. I was happy to be the one to supply the microphone. And shout out to my guy, Cole Manbeck, for the one coming up with that interview. But I've been a little bit surprised to what the reaction was to that. And you know what? If it's that bad, if you're getting screwed by the refs, you're a big boy football program. You'll go figure it out in the SEC, Texas. You've got Sark. You've got Sark. Who in the country has had more double-digit win seasons than Steve Sarkisian? And hey, Sark has been, we know. All right, fair enough, John. He hasn't had a double-digit win season. You're being an a-hole. Okay, fair enough. Well, at least we know Sark has always been at places that don't have as many resources relative to the rest of their peers, right? So we can cut Sark some slack on that. USC, no resources compared to their peers. No history and tradition advantages. No inherent recruiting advantages based on their locale. Same with Washington. Not like Washington was one of the bigger brands in their conference, or like they have a bunch of history or resources or tradition or anything like that. He's been in very difficult spots. And now, of course, at Texas, where they have no tradition and history and resources relative to the rest of their peers, we can understand why Sark hasn't hit that 10-win mark yet. Sark, basically the Iowa State of Texas head coaches right now. Maybe he'll get there this year. Maybe this will be the year. But even if it's not, and the Big 12 officiating is out there to screw you guys, and you're getting, nobody gets holding calls against you, you're going to be in the SEC next year. Piece of cake, right? You'll go out and win 10 games next year in the SEC. So your time is coming, Texas. Your time is coming. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. I think you can withstand a couple comments from a guy that you hadn't even heard of before this past week. I think you'll be all right. Okay, moving on to Samuel. What's up, Samuel? Samuel brings up, I'm glad that you bring up this point, Samuel, because I would really like to address this. Samuel says, Baylor fan, but what do you think about Satterfield? Look, I'm not at all sold on Scott Satterfield at Cincy. I don't want to be a bummer to Cincy fans, but I just, that one was weird. That was a weird one. It does not invoke a lot of confidence or excitement for me, not just from what I think he is as a coach standpoint, but just from a fit standpoint. Not that I have a great feel for Cincinnati football and what the fit is. I mean, I'm a noob when it comes to Cincinnati football outside of just, I know the high level stuff from watching the national college football landscape. So I'm not really, I will admit, I'm not the fairest person to be giving a really unique take on that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I didn't come away from this week with anything that made me feel particularly better about it necessarily, but I do wish that I was able to do a little bit more Cincinnati coverage. It just worked out the way that I was trying, and I've got videos coming up. I've got, I think part 1 with Kalani Sitaki was up. I've got part 2 with Kalani Sitaki coming. I have a little bit of Dana Holgerson from a breakout session. Obviously you guys saw the chat already with the UCF AD, who is, that guy's a hoot. I enjoy him a lot. Kansas City guy. And then I had Pesman, I had the Houston athletic director. I did do an interview with him, but had some audio problems with it. So I don't think I can run it, unfortunately. And I was trying to get Cincinnati guys as well, but it's just literally both of my days there were just the whole time I'm working on something. I'm interviewing somebody. I'm trying to chase somebody down. And especially day 2 with K-State there, it was just really tough because we did 8 podcast interviews for the 3-Mob podcast in addition to everything you're seeing on YouTube. So I tried my best to get everybody. Cincinnati the timing didn't work out very well, and I was not able to grab anybody. So it was not intentional. I don't mean that as a slight, Cincinnati fans. The scheduling just didn't work out very good as far as that goes. I honestly got lucky with BYU. I was not supposed to get Kalani Sitaki, but he wound up with a little bit of extra time, and I happened to be sitting right there. So that's just kind of the way it goes at media day. Some of that is there's some fortune. There's some fortune involved in all of that. Yormark. I was on the list to get Yormark, and I was not paying enough attention that first day and running around trying to do too many things, and I was not proactive enough in trying to make sure that we got them flagged down. So hey, we got the Tim Weiser thing instead. But anyway, yeah, I'm not crazy about the Satterfield hire. Wish nothing but the best for Cincinnati. Would love to be wrong, but I'm not real super high on that. Grandan, what's up, Grandan? Grandan just checking in to say great job this week. Thanks. Well, thank you, Grandan. Thank you for being there to watch all these videos, and thank you for being here in the chat tonight. I appreciate your support, my friend. Let's see. Provo Cougar fan. What's up, Provo Cougar fan? Provo Cougar fan in the house. Provo Cougar fan says Yormark needs to set a table and booth at the Pac-12 Media Day. That would be great. Well, so one of the more interesting things about Big 12 Media Day was the fact that Colorado sent a beat reporter. Well, I say Colorado. It was not Colorado that sent a beat reporter. We had a Colorado beat reporter in attendance at Big 12 Media Days asking some questions. And that is a part of what prompted the video that you saw. Was it yesterday that I posted? Yesterday or today? I can't remember. The Brett Yormark breakout session where he talked about, hey, look, Colorado loves brand. They know brand. And obviously I love brand. So you could sense without him saying a whole lot, there is definitely a fondness of Colorado there from Brett Yormark and what it is that they're doing, and particularly with what it is that they're doing with Coach Prime at the helm right now. So Anyway, yes, it would be great if, we got a Colorado beat guy at Big 12 Media Day. Why not just send Brett Yormark out to Pac-12 Media Day? Wouldn't we all love to hear an interview between John Wilner, John Canzano, and Brett Yormark? I mean, can we imagine the fireworks that would go off in that? I would listen to it. I would definitely listen to that podcast. So, hey, let's make that happen, people. Let's make that happen. Although I will say, when Yormark was asked by the 365 guys about, I think the question was framed somewhat like, doesn't it seem like the realignment conversation has become very adversarial, very angry. I think angry was the word, angry. And Yormark just didn't really want to go there. He was not really going to go there much at all, which is probably smart. I mean, I don't think it would be wise of him or behoove him to really get involved too much in the Big 12, Pac-12 discussion right now and what the framework of everything online typically is with all of that. What's up, Christian? Thank you, Christian, for your donation. And I appreciate your support. Thank you very much for being here. Christian says, genuinely great job at Media Days, John, and emphasis on the jaw. Someone did ask me, I think maybe it was Brian Etheridge, is this the jawline? Or maybe it was Josh Neighbors. I don't know, one of those two. Anyway, how intimidated was Yormark when he saw he had such jawline competition? This battle will be legendary. Well, that's a great question, Christian. That is a real, by the way, that is a real media day type of question. And I don't even say that stating it as if I don't like the fact that those sorts of questions get asked at Media Day. Those honestly break up Media Day and make them more fun. We did on the podcast, my third interview with Will Howard in the last couple of months. We just had him on a couple of weeks ago, and we were like, how do we make this more fun? And so I just started thinking of creative things to ask him, sort of along those lines. It doesn't always have to be the outrageous, really super silly stuff, but just different things. What's your favorite play from last year? What's the hardest hit you've taken? What, things of that nature, I think can make the Media Day experience more fun. So I appreciate a question like that, Christian. Unfortunately, I will have to say, I don't think this jawline can stand up to Brett Yormark. That man has a tremendous jawline, and I don't think that mine can come even close to holding a candle to his. So I will defer to Brett Yormark. All hail, Lord Yormark, Lord Karen, all hail. Heard an Endeavor shout out from Brett Yormark at one point at Big 12 Media Days too. So again, all hail, Lord Karen. All hail. Paychecks are coming in strong right now. Anyway, Yormark's got me beat there, Christian. But I appreciate you bringing that up. I appreciate you at least listing us in the same sentence there. But I think he's got me covered. He's got me beat. All right. Our web. What's up, our web? Our web says, let's be real. Texas doesn't want to lose to KU again. Yeah, this is definitely, I mean, look, the getting out's good right now for Texas because, boy, they were losing to worst Power 5 team in football, Kansas. Now Kansas actually has some substance to them. Kansas is getting better. And Texas probably doesn't want any part of that at all. It used to be K-State. K-State was the team for a while. Now they've gotten away from that over the last 6 years. And here comes Kansas to be the team to beat Texas every single year. We'll see if it happens. And yes, I can already, Texas fans, I know what happened last year when you played. All right. You lost 2 years ago to them in Austin. We get it. We understand. Back to the original point. You have not won the league in 15 years, a decade and a half. We'll say a decade and a half. That's the more fair way to say it. Basically a decade and a half since you've won the Big 12. You've lost a lot of games to a lot of teams that you have a much bigger brand and far more resources than. All right. Over the years, it's happened continuously. McMuffin. Are we at McMuffin? Yes, we are at McMuffin. McMuffin, what's up, McMuffin? McMuffin, I appreciate you being here. Says, it's awesome. It's an awesome time to be a Big 12 fan. Media days were so fun. Love this conference. Sick 'em. Yeah, I can imagine that was a hell of a time just to be a fan consuming it all because, I mean, between 365 sports guys, my YouTube channel, like Heartland College Sports, there's so many outlets there that are doing a great job covering the Big 12. Content was everywhere, even just everybody on social media. I love the shout out to the BYU social team was doing a great job. They had the picture of both the Houston mascot and BYU's mascot. Cosmo, by the way, immediately becomes the Big 12's best mascot. I mean, one, there was a video of him doing I don't know, is that not a line dance, but whatever the other country dancing thing is, where he's dancing with the Oklahoma State cheerleader. Then they had Cosmo and the Shasta, the Houston mascot, pointing at each other and doing the Spider-Man meme because they're both Cougars. There was Kalani Sitaki talking to Steve Sarkisian. And I can't remember if it's in the part that's already been released or if it's part 2 with Sitaki. But at one point I was asking him about what Sark was like coming out of junior college because Kalani Sitaki helped recruit him to BYU. So that was a very interesting conversation. Anyway, there was just a lot there that was really, really cool. You could tell that the 4 incoming schools were excited to be there. The 4 newcomers were really excited to be there and hadn't quite experienced something like that. Because Big 12 Media Days, like it feels bigger nowadays too. Like I really like it. Like Yormark's presence with the conference, and that's a part of the big overarching theme here of this video, is just simply like the confidence that is just tangible throughout the league when you're sitting there that has made this feel like a bigger deal. And, there were some national folks at Big 12 Media Days. There always are, but it felt a little more pertinent and a little more, again, just grandiose. And the fact that it's in Arlington, some years they'd had it out at the Star, like the practice facility. No, we're doing it at Jerry World. We're doing it at the big thing. You've got that giant Jumbotron up there. You've got the field where we just saw the Big 12 championship game come down to a goal line stand, basically. We're all set up in Radio Row in that end zone. Everything just had a really big feel to it. And especially, I think, with 4 newcomers, you just have a lot of media there, particularly like BYU has a huge contingent covering them. Just a much bigger, cooler. You can tell that the brand of this league has improved a lot over the course of 365 days from what it was last year, or the last one I attended 2 years ago, which was like a week before Texas and Oklahoma. That story broke that they were leaving, and Bob Bowlesby did a press conference where he said, I don't think realignment's coming back anytime soon. Ton had changed since I had attended one of those a couple of years ago. So it was great. I'm sure it's a great time to be a fan to watch it all as well. Eddie, what's up? Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Let me make sure I get that read in for you. Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. All right. If you're in San Antonio, you need some real estate help, talk to my friend Eddie Lozano. I appreciate you, first of all, for being here. And Eddie says, I used to be a hardcore Texas fan. Now I'm a Big 12 fan. I started watching Texas football in 1975. Now I enjoy Big 12 football. Go Big 12. Welcome new schools. How about that? Let's give it up for Eddie, a reformed Texas football fan who's now a Big 12 fan. He has left the side of Texas and come to the side of Tim Weiser. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for being here and for offering up your support to the channel. David, what's up, David? David says, is BYU Cosmo the best pickup mascot swinging around that Oklahoma State cheerleader? Yeah, I mean, look, David, gets a lot of points from me on that. That was wildly impressive. I was immediately like, is this something that just like everybody knows how to do if you're into that sort of thing? Like if you're into that sort of style of dancing, like everybody just knows that and you can pick it up like that? Or was there some sort of like crash course training that was going on? Did they script this beforehand? I have no idea, but Cosmo is a beast. Go watch, do yourself a favor and just Google like Cosmo the Cougar dancing videos and see some of the dancing videos if you have not watched those before. It's awesome. So I'm very much here for it. Cosmo, I think, saw somebody even power ranking mascots on Twitter in the new Big 12. I don't think there's any doubt that Cosmo goes to number 1 for me. Daniel, what's up, Daniel? Daniel says, and I appreciate your support, my friend. Daniel says, reports from CBS, ESPN said the ACC CW deal was done approximately in a month. So what is taking the Pac-12 so long? Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna crush the Pac-12 too long. I think that's a pretty unfair apples to oranges comparison. I think Brian Fisher, one of the National College Football guys, made that joke on Twitter, and I did. It's me, so I retweeted it. Kind of funny to point out, but they were doing a deal for 50 games. It was only 13 football games and like 28 basketball games. It's not nearly the scope of what the Pac-12 is trying to do, like completely on a different level. And it seems clear that they're working with probably Apple, somebody big that is taking their time with these. Apple, or you could say ESPN, and ESPN's going through all these changes. And that's a part of what's leading to the delay. So I don't think it's fair to just say like, hey, look how quick the ACC got this done. You guys are a joke. Now, there are many reasons that they might be a joke for not having gotten it done, but it's not because this CW thing came together very fast on a deal for 50 games that are spread out over multiple sports. this would not be the battle to pick, I think. Not a very credible way to go about attacking the Pac-12 if you're going to attack the Pac-12, because there's plenty of meat on that bone. If you want to attack the Pac-12 and their tactics and the way they've handled all this, there is a ton of meat on that bone. I just don't know that this is really the way to do it. I will read you a little bit about both of these stories, the Pac-12 and the ACC. Here are the details on the ACC. So the ACC links up with the CW. This fall, the ACC will begin airing football and basketball events on the CW network, a new addition to the league's Saturday broadcast schedule. The CW has secured the rights to 50 ACC games beginning September 9th with Pitt's football game against Cincinnati. So there you have it. Cincinnati will be on the first CW game for the ACC. They'll have 13 ACC football games that'll air Saturdays on the CW, which will be broadcast. And then they'll broadcast 28 men's and women's basketball games throughout December, January, and February. So that's what you have here with all of this. It's just a little chunk of it's football, and these are games that would have been on regional networks. So it's just going to give them more coverage. This plays into the idea that I remember saying this, and a lot of people have said this. If the Pac-12 were to actually have the CW involved as a part of this deal, there are a lot of reasons why it makes sense. It definitely makes some sense because you have national distribution with this. And I think the ACC is being fairly praised for this. Like, hey, just a better way to get better distribution for those games as opposed to only being able to watch them regionally. Like people really having to hunt those down. This helps you out, get you in more sports bars across America. The CW is on basic cable and is essentially everywhere with any cable package. So you'll be able to pick it up pretty easily. To me, that's kind of a no-brainer, easy move for the ACC. The games are going to be produced by Raycom Sports, which already sublicenses ACC events from ESPN. They sold the rights to the CW, and they're going to continue to produce them. So it's just a very easy operation for everybody involved here. Feels really like a win-win all the way around. So it's a different kind of deal than what the Pac-12 is dealing with. But I mentioned, like, hey, it seems like they're dealing with ESPN and potentially, and that could be a part of the holdup here because ESPN is going through these layoffs and just a lot of stuff going on right now. Kirk Schultz has mentioned before, one of our partners, they're worried about the optics. And now we're seeing this. This is a little blurb from John Canzano's latest. Earlier this year, Disney announced it would cut more than $3 billion in content costs and announced plans for 7,000 layoffs. Those content cuts, interestingly, do not impact live sports content. Does the industry shift work to the Pac-12's advantage? Is it good or bad for the Pac-12 to hear the CEO of Disney talking about selling equity in ESPN? The member of the Pac-12 CEO group I spoke with on Thursday said it was, quote, eventually good, that the shift at Disney and other places definitely caused a short-term delay, but will be worth the wait. So member of the Pac-12 CEO group says it's eventually good that all these changes are happening at Disney, ESPN, and that the shift caused a short-term delay, but, quote, will be worth the wait. So the way this is framed, it definitely makes you think that ESPN is a part of this. It's leaving the door open for that not to be totally correct. But the Pac-12, again, is trying to convince you, hey, yeah, it's taken a while, but we'll be good. Worth the wait. Worth the wait. I know. Just roll your eyes at it again. I mean, it feels like at this point, you could be going into ChatGPT, for those that have used ChatGPT, the AI software that will just generate text for you. And you could just say, hey, here's the situation. Here's what John Canzano has said about all this the whole time. Pump me out a new Twitter teaser here. Pump me out 5 new Twitter teasers, and that would be one. It would be like, hey, a member of the Pac-12 CEO group says this is going to be worth the wait. The Pac-12 punches back at its detractors, a headline that we've seen before. I'm paraphrasing there, but it was close to that. We've seen a million of these things from Canzano without results actually happening. So I think you just have to write it off, man. You have to write it off. The same way that you would anybody that is saying, like, hey, it's going to be all over for the Pac-12 next week, 2 weeks from now, whatever. I've got to see it before I can believe it on both accounts there. But the one that has more burden of proof, I would say right now, the one that needs to prove something much more is the Pac-12 side of things. So, like, that's the difference there. The Big 12 can sit there and say that, but the Big 12 is going to be just fine where they're at right now. And I think that's something that Brett Yormark made abundantly clear throughout all the messages that he was preaching and any interviews that he was doing. This league's confident as hell. They are strong as hell, and they're going to be fine whether it's at 14 or not moving forward. Like, we are going to be A-okay. The Pac-12 is not unless they do prove that. And so there's more burden of proof on them. as far as all of this goes. There was a Brett Yormark piece that I was going to throw into that. Anyway, I digress. It is a very confident league right now. And I will branch back into what I was talking about a little bit at the beginning with this and just give you some takeaways from Brett Yormark and why I think this league is so galvanized, so strong, and feeling so good about itself right now. First of all, Brett Yormark did admit, he did say, I will be a little disappointed if the league isn't at 14 teams within the next 2 years. He conceded that, but that's giving you a pretty wide timeline there. That was maybe like the only hint that we got when he said also like, hey, I've got a plan on expansion, but I don't want to get into it today. It was probably like the only little glimpse that we got at it. Like his idea is, hey, within 2 years, we should probably be expanded beyond just the 12 that are going to be sticking around here. He feels like that's something that should be happening within 2 years. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, look at everything that's happened within just 1 year. The guy had a list of it when he was up doing his like Steve Jobs presentation at the beginning of it, where he's reading notes, walking around. It was not standing at a podium. It was walking with the mic with him, not having to worry about being stationary. And that's one thing that I do. I love this because I know that it drives some people nuts, particularly the detractors. But like those that have tried to paint Brett Yormark as this sleazy used car salesman probably don't love the fact that he was up there. Like really, it felt like trying to get his Steve Jobs on, like trying to be the Apple CEO guy making a presentation. He had a video. He wanted to run the video back and play it again. He had a graphic with everything that's been accomplished in 1 year, like very clear about what he is trying to say, that this league is doing big things and you can either come with us or get out of the way because we're moving forward. And he does not want to be just like passive college administrator guy. He is going to be dynamic CEO that is talking to you about all the awesome things that are happening and wants to present that as impressively as he can. And that was kind of my takeaway from the way he handled his time at the podium there. He also, I thought, was very diplomatic and at the same time knows where his bread is buttered now. And I say that because there was the quote where he said that Texas and Oklahoma were going to be celebrated. He said, quote, I think it's going to be a year of celebration. We're going to celebrate our continuing 8. We're going to celebrate our new 4. And in fact, we're going to celebrate Texas and Oklahoma and all the contributions they've made to this conference since day one, because they'll always be a big part of this conference. But then at the same time, he was asked a question at the breakout session that was, hey, Texas and Oklahoma have really dominated recruiting in this conference. Who do you think is going to step up moving forward? And Brett Yormark's response was, I'm not sure they've carried recruitment. They haven't been in the championship game here for a couple of years now, and all the other schools have done an incredible job. So I'm not sure they've carried recruitment for this conference. I mean, I love Texas and Oklahoma, don't get me wrong. And like I've said before, I've got great relationships with them. But our schools are doing an incredible job at recruitment. Look at TCU's run last year. 80% of our teams made a bowl game last year, so everyone's in a great place. Now, is that comment like completely – I will just say like he's taking a little bit of latitude with that because there's really no way around it. Texas and Oklahoma they've dominated recruiting, not winning necessarily, although Oklahoma certainly has. But Texas has not dominated winning, but they have dominated recruiting. Both schools have done that pretty easily. They're 1 and 2 and have been forever in recruiting throughout this conference since it began back in 1996. So that's not really totally accurate. But the point is, he was not about to take a question that was kind of meant to be a like, hey, you guys are losing the only 2 great things here. How will you ever replace them? He is not about to have any of that sort of attitude around his conference at all. And I was talking with Josh Neighbors about this. You can check out the video. I know the video's up on 365 if you want to watch like his interview with me. But I was just talking like the Big 12 did used to feel a little small time. Like I think the leadership used to, and like I like Bob Bowlesby, and I said I think he deserves more credit than what he got for the way everything went down, especially at the end. And I will always appreciate the way he handled things at the end to set Brett Yormark up to give him this hand that he has now to play. But beforehand, and when it was Dan Beebe, and like, not only was the Big 12 always reactionary, always the butt of jokes, but they brought a lot of it on themselves. Like it felt more small time than it does now. With Brett Yormark in charge, it feels like a big, important, innovative, dynamic organization. All adjectives that did not fit the bill of what the Big 12 was before. It was like Texas, Oklahoma, and the Little 10. Just everybody else and their little tugboats and behind the times, not dynamic, not innovative, none of that stuff. And it just feels completely different to me now with him at the helm. And that was so apparent this week. And I kind of love it because I know that the detractors and people who don't like him and people who have painted him as the used car salesman guy are sitting there like, God, this freaking guy. Can you believe this? Look at this, up there on stage, running back the video twice, trying to be Steve Jobs up there. Who the hell does he think he is? Well, he thinks he's a guy that's getting a lot done. And I heard him say on the 365 interview, his expectations were surpassed in year one. He's confident about that. He knows it. I think he surpassed everybody's expectations with basically the TV deal alone and what he was able to do with that and how that has put the Big 12 in front of the Pac-12 and taken some leverage from them. It's just been an incredible job. And that whole attitude was all over the place throughout media day. Just everybody is bullish about this. Every coach, this was one thing that stood out to me. Every coach that I heard was very quick to point out, like unsolicited, hey, thankful for Brett Yormark's leadership and everything he's doing for this league. And I know that like for every coach and administrator, Brett Yormark has not always been like immediately their total vibe. Their total, like he's a different vibe, like I said, than what the Big 12 was before. So it had to be an adjustment. But I think by now everybody has seen the results. And so even if it's not totally your style, the way he does it, everybody realizes what it has done for the league and the results and how badly needed, desperately needed it was for the league. And so you're absolutely seeing that be reflected by everybody and everybody be very thankful for that outwardly. Which again, you didn't see when people talk about the camaraderie and what's going on in that league. You just didn't see much of that happening before. There wasn't maybe as much need. People didn't feel as much need to go out of the way to do that, but you're definitely seeing it now and with good reason because of what Yormark is doing for the league. So anyway, there's a little bit more expanding on that thought that I teased out in the video here. Yormark did not go into crazy details about expansion. It didn't come out with like the total fireworks at a press conference that maybe we all wanted. But what he did do was set the tone and continue to set the tone for the way that this league is believing in itself right now. Okay, Eddie, back to Eddie. Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Great show. Keep it up. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you, Eddie. If you want to be like Eddie and show your support, click the $ below the chat box where it says chat. Below where it says chat, you can click the $ and submit your donation. Only way to ensure that your comment is going to get read. We've got almost 300 people in the chat. Can't keep up with it all. That is the way to make sure that your question or comment gets read. You can dictate some of the content here tonight. And your help supporting the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a weekly basis here on the channel. It is much appreciated. As always, could not do it without all of your guys' support. So I really, really do appreciate it. I see, who was it that just threw in the chat? Christian, whatever happened to Lubbock Guest House? That is a good question. That is a good question. I do not know what happened to Lubbock Guest House. It has been a minute since we've seen Lubbock Guest House here in the chat. So if anybody knows, would love to have him back. Another one for you from Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. Very supportive here. If you guys are in San Antonio, you need some real estate help, hit up my guy, Eddie Lozano. Cougar Tracks. What's up, Cougar Tracks? Cougar Tracks says trivia for you. All right, I'm here for it. I'm always here for some sports trivia. 1997 Cotton Bowl, BYU versus K-State. Who was the BYU quarterback? You need to watch this game, John. What a game. Oh, well, please, Cougar Tracks. That's easy work, my friend. It was Steve Sarkisian. I remember it well. I've seen the game many a time. I used to have it on a VHS tape. And even though K-State lost, I watched it a lot as a kid. I vividly remember watching it at my grandparents' house because my parents went to the game and didn't take me. I was 7 at the time. My parents didn't take me. And I was furious because I was by that point, I was already so indoctrinated. I wanted to go desperately. They didn't take me. I was mad, and they got me a teddy bear from the game. They had these. That was Southwestern Bell at the time. So they had these. That was the sponsor of the bowl game. They had these like teddy bears with a Southwestern Bell T-shirt. And they brought me back the teddy bear. And I was always just like, oh, God, this is what I got. Instead of getting to go to the game, I got a freaking teddy bear. So I remember it well. I remember Mario Smith absolutely hitting somebody harder than I've ever seen somebody hit. Poor BYU receiver. Helmet went flying off, that whole thing. And then it was like the next play, BYU scored the go-ahead touchdown. I guess it would have been the eventual game-winning touchdown. I remember that. I mean, I will still tell you, Cougar Tracks, I think if we had replay, I think Kevin Lockett got a foot in bounds on that touchdown pass in the back of the end zone, which would have put K-State ahead. So, I would still call it a little bit controversial, but I mean, hey, no, fair enough. That was a great BYU team with Sark at quarterback, and they won. So yes, I remember plenty. There was a weird game. Like K-State completed like a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and then went for 2 because I think there was a penalty on the extra point, or there was a penalty on the Hail Mary play that moved. Something with that where they got like an extra yard. They decided to go for 2. There were a lot of weird things I remember happening in that game. So I got plenty of it there for you, Cougar Tracks. That was a great game. Cat fan in Buffalo land. Oh, we got cat fan in Buffalo land. Okay. Daniel, what's up, Daniel? Well, thank you immensely for your support, Daniel, as always. Really appreciate you, my friend. Daniel says, great interviews, John. Just checking in on vacation. We just watched the Rockies beat the Yankees in awesome fashion. All right, I like that. I'm always feel like a closet is the wrong word, but I'm like a pseudo bandwagon Rockies and Cubs fan. Cubs because I went to Wrigley when I was really young and kind of fell in love with the lore there. And then the Rockies, we would go to Denver every year for a family vacation growing up. So I went to a lot of Rockies games when we were out there, and I really like Denver and the mountain vibes. So I'm here for the Rockies like that. Okay, this is one I don't. Arches in Utah is beautiful. Okay, Arches in Utah is beautiful. Welcome new members to the conference. Keep up the good work and go Cats. Well, I like that. Great message, Daniel. Hope you're enjoying your vacation. Live it up for me. I would love to be out in Colorado. Maybe I can find a way to get a long weekend in August and get out to Colorado a little bit like I typically do during the summer. But yes, I'm with you. Welcome new members to the conference. Cheers to the new members of the conference after experiencing their first Big 12 Media Days. And cheers to you, Daniel. Thank you for your support of the channel, as always. People like you are what keeps this going. So I really, really do appreciate it. R-Web. What's up, R-Web? R-Web says, to be fair, Raycom already owned the game, so no new money for ACC, just better exposure. Yes, better exposure, but still like a no-brainer. I mean, that to me is like a no-brainer sort of thing. Like if you are going to, and I think R-Web you're responding to, I'm chronologically piecing this together. You're responding to the person, I think it was Daniel maybe, that said like, hey, how are they able to get it done in a month, but it's taking the Pac-12 this long? I'm guessing that's a response to that. Yes, Raycom already owned them, and Raycom is going to continue to producing them. So for the CW, I mean, again, that's why I say win-win. Like for the CW, it's sort of like, well, yeah, this is great. Like we don't even have to produce these things, and we can test the waters with getting some live sports out there, maybe setting themselves up for a little bit of a Pac-12 package too. Like that's another thing I would throw in there about it. I don't think that's like hey, the Pac-12 is screwed now because the ACC came in and took these inventory slots. I mean, it's 13 games. They could throw a doubleheader together, I would imagine, if they wanted to. I don't think that's any sort of death knell there. It's a savvy move. That seems to me a pretty savvy move for the ACC. And I know they're all about like trying to find extra ways to get money right now. So that's not going to do it for them. You're right. That is not going to net them extra money right now, but the extra exposure is very good. And remember, think back to this Pac-12 deal. How much have we talked about the balance between money and exposure? Those are two very important things to be weighed with your media rights deal and your TV deal. So it is important to bring that up, the exposure piece, if you can, in addition to just the money. You can't be thinking about only following the dollar, or you're going to get yourself into a little bit of trouble. It needs to be a balance, and the appropriate balance between money and exposure. Aglist, what's up, Aglist? Appreciate you being here, my friend, as always. Great to hear from you. Aglist says, hi, John. Who did you interview or meet this week at Big 12 Media Day that surprised you? What disappointed you? Only 125 days until the Sunflower Showdown. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. Hey, I appreciate it, Allen. Let me tell you one thing that I will say this was a moderate surprise just because I had never been around him very much. But I'm going to tailor this one to you, Allen, because one of the things I had written on my list of observations was that I went over to, and I'll try to get the video posted. It's nothing earth-shattering, and some of the breakout stuff, it's not the most earth-shattering stuff in the world, but I do think sometimes it's interesting for you guys to just see and hear from coaches and players like in a more candid sort of setting. So these breakouts, like they'll do the podium stuff, and then they set up little podiums around the room that you can just walk to and walk up to at certain periods of time where they have players doing interviews and stuff. And so I went over to Jalen Daniels, and I had actually not seen all the social media stuff about his, like the Apple Watch pennant that he was wearing that was playing his highlights. So I didn't see that until I walked up in person, and immediately was like, okay, like this dude's definitely got some swag. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But he was just a really engaging, fun personality. And I just had never heard much from him. I had never been around him, so I had never been able to talk to him or pick up that vibe. We had a nice little chat about NCAA, like what his ratings would be on the NCAA video games, if he wanted to be a part of those, which he very much does. Does not sound like he would be in the group of players that would want to shut that down. And then we talked a little bit about his offensive coordinator, Andy Kolanecki, because if you guys have followed me for very long, you know, I think he's like just an absolute stud, one of the best coordinators in the conference. So yeah, we had a nice little chat, and I just came away thinking like, all right, like I get it. He's a very dynamic personality in addition to how dynamic he is on the field. So fun chat. That surprised me, and it's not like I went in expecting him to be dull and boring or anything, but I was just like, okay, that's a significant observation for me. Like that, he's a very poignant, engaging personality. I can see why people would want to really follow him based on the way he plays and the way he was just as a personality. Other things that disappointed me. I mean, honestly, the biggest disappointment, there were two disappointments for me. One is just like, we didn't do a good enough job going over all the equipment that we were going to have with the stuff we were using for podcasting. And so it was a little bumpy getting started. It took a little bit of time getting started and getting everything set up, which was time that I could have probably gotten other content. But the biggest thing that was tough, and I'm not, look, I think the Big 12 did a great job. They were awesome hosts. I don't really have any complaints, and I try to stray away from like really publicly complaining about this a lot. But the thing that made it a little difficult is that, and this has always been a thing at AT&T Stadium, there's not very good Wi-Fi. Like the Wi-Fi connection is not very good. It would drop fairly regularly. Like it felt like once every 20 minutes or so, it would drop. It was not fast enough to really be like uploading things very well. Or I was trying to take video from my phone and airdrop it to the computer, which was just a nightmare because they're like these 20-minute video files. So the Wi-Fi situation was the biggest disappointment. Like I literally had to go to get the Tim Weiser thing up. We had to go to a sports bar, like kind of across the street from AT&T Stadium. So that part was a little hectic and probably added some more work time. In fact, I was still finishing stuff up today. But that's probably not all that interesting to you guys. So I don't know that there was anything else that really like disappointed me from a personality standpoint, other than maybe like, yes, naturally I would have been in the contingent of everybody that was hoping that Brett Yormark was going to go up there and say like, hey, we're targeting Colorado and Arizona. They told the Pac-12, you've got 3 weeks or we're bolting, I mean, short of something like that being up there on the podium. I wouldn't say that I was like really disappointed in anything else. This was not a surprise, but another observation that kind of confirmed what my assumption would have been. BYU folks were just incredibly nice. The sports info staff that was there, very hospitable, helped me out a lot, made it very easy to get the AD, the head coach on, even when initially it looked like Kalani Sitaki was not going to be able to come on. They still made it happen. So I very much appreciated them and had a great time meeting them. I met like Sean Walker. I know one of the media guys that covers them. Ben Criddle, I know, was there, who I've gone on the radio with a few times. He was super nice too. So it was just really enjoyed getting a chance to be around the BYU folks. Let's see, Robert. I know I've got Robert here. Robert, appreciate you, Robert. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Robert says, late to the chat, how did you split up the interviews with your channel and KCSN? And my favorite interview was Kalani Sitaki. Such a class act. Great job. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. He was, man. So Kalani Sitaki, I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain on that one too. He like sat and talked to me for an extra like 5 minutes or so after the interview, which I know that's not like super uncommon or anything like that. And, maybe some people would roll their eyes at that, but like these coaches, like they don't have a lot of time and they're moving through from like one interview to the next. And there's a lot going on. Like it's kind of just controlled chaos for everybody. So you have to be very gracious of your time already to give an interview. And he had given me like a 20-minute interview. And then we had gotten talking at the end of the interview about Andy Reid and the Chiefs. And so we just started like talking football and talking about the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And he just stood there and like shot the breeze with me. for a while afterwards. Could not have been a nicer guy. And just more humble. And I was also taken aback by, like, during the interview, I was asking him about the Utah BYU rivalry, for instance. And he was saying, look, like, I want my guys to be, basically saying, like, I don't want this to get crazy chippy or anything, because we want to do things the right way and be humble and approach it the right way and all that. It just, you could tell that was very genuine. And I frankly, I'd never really heard the guy before. So that came across like very genuine to me, honestly. And he spoke to this a little bit in the interview. I think there are some similarities between, like, Chris Kleiman and Kalani Sitaki, just in terms of, like, being great culture guys and just really humble, genuine people. So I really did interview him, or enjoy the interview with him. How did we split it up? Well, basically we split it up like anything that was K-State centric was pretty much going to KCSN, and anything that wasn't was going the other way. The one exception was Weiser, because, like, Cole got it. And a part of the reason we wanted to have him was because the back half of the interview was all getting incredibly revealing stuff about Ron Prince and Bob Huggins being hired at K-State and Bill Snyder retiring the first time, and all these different things that were fascinating to hear him speak so candidly about. But, like, because of that, and because, I mean, that was Cole's get. That was going to be the full breadth of that was going to be on KCSN. They were kind enough to let me take a little bit of that to add to YouTube, as my YouTube channel as well. So that was basically it. I was trying to get everything I could that was more like Big 12 centric to put on the YouTube channel, and K-State centric stuff is all going to 3MA. And, like, man, we've already released a bunch of those, and we have a bunch more coming. So if you're a K-State fan, I would definitely highly suggest making sure that you got your feed set up for that. Alpha Cat, what's up, Alpha Cat? Alpha Cat, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Sorry, real quick. Yeah, all right. Alpha Cat, if Colorado and Arizona join next year, how do they get paid on the old contract? Do the Hateful Eight have to pony up? Well, you get pro rata for that. And I think it's been established now. Most of the reporting suggests that even though that pro rata clause was originally, it was going to be like the 65% coming from ESPN, and you'd have to convince Fox to kick in the rest. I know it's been reported multiple times now that Colorado would get the full share. Dennis Dodd has reported that UConn would potentially get the full share too. So I would assume that you'd get that for Arizona. So if they join, it would not have to be a deal like with the 4 newcoming schools. We've heard about, like, I keep calling them newcoming schools, incoming schools, 4 newcomers. The 4 schools that have now been added to the league, they're not making full shares right away, and everybody else is having to pitch in a little bit of money in the short term to help cover them. Some of that money was coming from the exit fee from Texas and Oklahoma. But if Colorado and Arizona were to come, I think you tack that on to the TV contract. The pro rata clauses kick in, meaning that the TV contract would be beefed up to represent the fact that you have those 2 schools there, and everybody would be making the same amount per school, and you just keep going, keep moving right along. So that is the answer to that question. I was going to go through here and make sure. Oh, one thing that we have not talked about in terms of shots toward Texas and Oklahoma, that wasn't an interesting thing. I would not file this under a surprise, but just an observation that I had here. Mike Gundy was certainly not shy at taking, I guess you could call it a little bit of a shot at Oklahoma. He's just being honest about where the situation is, but he was asked about playing Oklahoma in the future because, look, I mean, the series is going to end for now. Oklahoma's going to the SEC, and Oklahoma State has talked about fact that they're scheduled out with Power 5 opponents for a long time in that non-con. So there's really not a whole lot they can do as far as making that schedule work to play the game. And so here's what Gundy said about it. He was asked if he would entertain the idea of playing Oklahoma in the future as a non-conference opponent. He quickly shut the idea down. Quote, "No. We have 9 conference games scheduled, and then we have through 15 years, we're scheduled all the way up. We're full for the most part, and we have Power 5 teams. Oklahoma State's not going to change what we do because Oklahoma chose to go to the SEC. They need to change what they do because they're the ones that made up their mind to go to the SEC. So with all that talk from the administration saying Oklahoma State needs to do this and do that, all Oklahoma had to do was not go to the SEC. So it is what it is. We can cut right to the chase. I'll listen to the president. I'll listen to the AD. If that's something they want to do, I'm good. But I don't think that's something that's going to happen with the way our scheduling is." And again, pretty fair from Gundy, right? I mean, that's the situation. I probably wouldn't. I mean, look, everybody wants that game to continue, but if you are the team that's being left behind, I completely understand the fact that you would not want to be going out of your way to bend over backwards to make that game happen and a rivalry happen that, frankly, I mean, Oklahoma has dominated. That would probably be the way it's gone. I mean, Gundy's won it, 3 times in like 18 years? The way it's gone, that's just a bonus for Oklahoma, getting to win, getting to beat your in-state rival and keep those bragging rights going. Like, that's not something that I would be. And by the way, I'm not trying to suggest that Oklahoma State would never win those games. They absolutely could. And hell, if Brent Venables stays there, that might become the norm. We'll see, but that might become the norm. But I can understand why you wouldn't want to be bending over backwards for it, and certainly not acquiescing and bowing down to them publicly and saying like, oh, we really want to play them. Like, let's make it happen. Let's get it together. No, look, Kansas and Missouri, they had that thing. Like, they're finally now getting each other back on the schedule, but it took a while. There were hard feelings for a long time, and it's understandable for everybody involved. Texas A&M, the same thing happened. Now they're going to play each other because they have to in the same conference, but the same sort of thing. They went through it as well. So I just think that's pretty natural. I don't hold it against Gundy, but I did. Gundy had another quote. Gundy had a quote about talking about NIL and like the changes in college athletics. And he basically said, he said that it's like religion and politics, and that he almost was to the point where he didn't want to talk about it anymore. And now I just, here it is. Said, quote, I'm almost considering the NIL and the portal like religion and politics, where it's not even worth discussing. I get the point that he's trying to make there. And I didn't hear the actual context of the question, like what it sounded like. I just see the quote in writing. And a lot of times I think it's unfair to probably run with those too much. But I do wonder, and I sat there for like 10 minutes at a Gundy breakout, asked a couple questions and just listened. But it's like every time I hear him talking, he was talking a lot about the gambling stuff. When I hear him talk about these new issues, and I know that they were a little resistant to the portal at first until it was absolutely necessary. I don't know. Gundy, I wonder how interested he is in continuing to do this because of all the changes to the game. So that's my question there. I mean, I still fully believe in the guy as a coach. He's been more consistent than anybody else in the league over a very long period of time now. I very much respect the man as a football coach, but I don't know. When I hear him talk about these things, I just think like, this does not seem like you're super keen on continuing to do this and operate the way that you have to operate to be successful in 2023 in college football. So I don't know. I just filed that away as like something to keep an eye on, obviously, particularly coming off the heels of the season that Oklahoma State had last year and some questions about what they're going to be this year, being picked 7th in the Big 12, kind of middle of the pack. So just wait and see on Gundy. But that was kind of the vibe that I picked up from being around Gundy just a little bit over the 2 days in Arlington. Delarick, what's up, Delarick? Delarick, thank you for the support. Delarick says, let's just call the new schools the Fresh Four. I can get down with that. Fresh Four would be easier than me stepping over myself, trying to tee them up every single time. The Fresh Four. Alpha Cat says, you didn't read RCCH, Rock Chalk Chicken Hawk. Sorry, I saw that. I didn't know what it meant, and then I forgot to come back to it. So, yeah, I did not know what the RCCH, Rock Chalk Chicken Hawk. All right, there's some smack talk from Alpha Cat to the Hawks in the house. I know Alan here earlier was a cat that was in the chat, a hawk. Meanwhile, that was in the chat. So we got a little smack talk there. Hey, K-State KU Twitter these days, man. I was having this conversation over text with somebody right before this. Like, oh, it is feisty. I tell you what. It's fun for the rivalry, but in a day and age of Twitter where you have KU better at football and K-State much better at basketball, it's getting heated, man. It is heated all over the place, and everybody is talking, and it's getting a little – I'm trying to stay out of it a little bit here lately. It's been fairly nasty, man. We've got a long way. Like, this was exciting. It was great to get to media days and all that, but you forget that the Big 12 does this earlier than anybody else, and you get done, and it's – I mean, we're sitting here, it's July 16th. Like, we've still got – a ways to go, unfortunately, before the season is actually going to get here. So it's gonna continue to be pretty contentious, I would imagine. And then we'll finally get some games and see how everything shakes itself out this fall. So anyway, I think that's it, guys. I'll make one last check through my notes. Well, let me give you this. Let's end on this. I'm saving it to the end because it's a little bit more speculative. It's a little bit more of the rumor mill sort of thing. And I try to steer away from that as much as I can here on this channel. But I did see this came from Ben Criddle. doing radio out in Utah. He had Barry Trammell on, somebody that I would have loved to have gotten on, and I really like and respect Barry Trammell. He used to come on the old radio show every once in a blue moon. And just a really wise elder statesman of the league media. But this was a quote from him that was tweeted out, I saw from Ben Criddle. Said Barry Trammell on what Pac-12 schools he thinks will move over to the Big 12. And this is what Trammell said. Said, quote, I have said since all of this bubbled a year ago that the Pac-12 would find a way to stay together. I thought it made too much sense geographically, traditionally, and all of those things. I didn't think the money would be that significant of a difference. But then mid-May, I had a Big 12 source say that Colorado is coming. I've heard the same thing from another big source this week. Colorado is coming. That's made me reassess that maybe Colorado has committed. What I don't know is if anybody else is coming with them. I know what everybody else knows, which is Arizona seems interested. Arizona State, not so much. They probably even would need to move together if it happens. Utah doesn't want to leave. They want to stay in the pack. Colorado seems the most likely to come, and I believe the Big 12 officials think they're coming. That's what I know. I would guess that Colorado is coming. Beyond that, I don't know. There was also, Tim Weiser, a part of that interview, the deputy commissioner of the league. He said he'd be shocked if they didn't have more schools coming to the conference in the next couple of years. Yormark said he'd be a little disappointed if they didn't within the next couple of years. So it does seem like everybody's pretty bullish here. And then if you just go follow my Twitter feed. I picked this up from Greg Flugar, tweeted out links to these. You gotta search a little bit because you got to go listen to some interviews. But if you do, Dusty Dvorak, who was there for ESPN, was doing local radio in, I believe, the Oklahoma City area. And he said the word on the street was that there would be a big surprise coming this next week. Tony Caridi, play-by-play voice at West Virginia, he was doing local radio back in West Virginia. There was another link that Greg Flugar sent out that I retweeted where he talked about basically the same sort of thing, that something could very well be coming here very quickly, very shortly. And it seemed to all sync up with kind of like what Barry Trammell is suggesting here about Colorado. So I guess, the scuttlebutt for those like really in the know seemed to be this week that something could be coming rather quickly. And obviously the most likely situation, the most likely scenario there would be Colorado. So I think we're all still very much on Colorado watch, even if it's quieted down a little bit here. So that's what we got. Again, still, I would say like that's more in like the rumor sort of stage, not anything that's being like reported. But just throwing it out there. So keep an eye out on it. I'll be here. We'll be paying attention this next week. See what it is that we get, what happens. And we've got a buzzer beater here from Daniel, Cat fan in Buffalo Land, aka Daniel Osborne. Daniel says, I always thought it was Chuck Chicken Hawk. Up Chuck Chicken Hawk. Okay, Up Chuck Chicken Hawk as opposed to Rock Chuck Chicken Hawk. I don't know that I've actually ever heard that one. I don't think that I have, to be completely honest. You guys are teaching me something tonight, Daniel. Michael, four corner schools equals basically BYU to the Pac-12 South vomiting. Michael, I would say this. You guys have kicked the Pac-12's ass. BYU just destroyed the Pac-12 over the last couple of years. So if that's what was happening, I'd be pretty excited about that. Like you guys would run the Pac-12 South. You guys would run that league. So you'll be all right. That was another thing I heard Kalani Sitaki getting asked about a lot, was how much success they had against Pac-12 schools and how that kind of fuels their thoughts and motivations heading into this move to the Big 12. So anyway, all right. I think that's going to do it for me, guys. Fun chat. Really, really nice to kind of empty the briefcase from the experience in Arlington this week at Big 12 Media Days. It was great to get back there. Great to see everybody. Check out the rest of the content here on the channel. There's been plenty of it the last few days. There's going to be more coming up over the next few days. Check out everybody else that was there, like the 365 Sports crew, the content that they were putting out, which I know has been great as well. Spread the word about the channel, social media, Facebook groups, fans of your team, fans of the league, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, whatever it is. Spread the word about the channel, word of mouth. Tell your friends, tell your family. Let's continue to grow this channel. You can support me on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4. If you give the video a like on your way out the door, I would much appreciate that too. Just one click. Leave a comment in the comment section, whether you love me, hate me, agree, disagree. All of that stuff helps with the YouTube algorithm. So I would much appreciate that as well. And I think that's all I got for you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Have a great week, and I will talk to you all soon.